A team of archaeologists in England stared down at the ground, shocked by what they see. For years, they've been engaged in a colossal project, and now it seems that their efforts have borne fruit. In the dirt beneath their feet, a set of haunting figures gaze up at them. This is an image that will forever be scorched into their memories. Archaeologists uncovered Roman statues with some wild details. These archaeologists were called into action after a new rail line was given the green light. This is the HS2 route, which is set to connect London to more northerly English cities. The project has been dogged by problems and controversies, though. Plans have been rewritten, spending has exceeded expectations, and strong opposition to the project has emerged. It would be a stretch to ever suggest the HS2 project has been smooth sailing, but one group of people has arguably benefited from it all. Because the rail line will cut through great tracts of English land, archaeologists were called upon to excavate areas identified as potentially being of special interest before any hidden artifacts that might be lurking underground were lost forever. In the end, the scale of these archaeological works has been unlike anything undertaken before. Since 2018, no fewer than 1,000 archaeologists have been brought on board for this immense undertaking. It is, in fact, the biggest single archaeological initiative to ever take place across the United Kingdom, with experts deployed to more than 60 different sites along the planned route. Thankfully, these specialists haven't been left disappointed. The amazing discoveries made along the HS2 route are definitely befitting of an archaeological project of this scale. Light has been shed onto the history of Britain like never before, with more and more evidence emerging of how people have lived here through the centuries. But the astonishing figures in the ground the team announced in October 2021 might be the most extraordinary finds of all. It's tough to know where to begin when it comes to the discoveries that have emerged from the HS2 digs. But let's maybe start in 2017 when archaeologists were exploring Euston Railway Station in London. Though the HS2 project was still in its very early stages back then, the experts still found some pretty impressive stuff, which proved a sign of things to come. The archaeologists found a pair of time capsules in the ground, which had been laid there 140 years ago by people of the Victorian era. But that wasn't even the best find during that particular dig. No, the most exciting discovery was human remains belonging to someone of tremendous historical significance. Captain Matthew Flinders was the first ever captain to lead an expedition around the whole landmass of Australia. In fact, he even helped ensure the name of the country stuck by using it in his work. After he died in 1814, the adventurer was laid to rest in St. James Gardens burial ground, which came to be covered over by Euston Station. Until the archaeologists found his body in 2017, everyone thought he'd been lost forever. Fast forward to 2020 and more incredible discoveries were being announced from the HS2 archaeologists. In March that year, for example, word came of a railway turntable from 1837 being excavated in the city of Birmingham. For anyone who doesn't know, a railway turntable is a big appliance that spins trains facing the wrong way around, so they're facing the right direction. Speaking in the wake of the turntable's excavation, HS2's historic environment advisor John Millward spoke about its significance. He said, "The discovery of what could be the world's oldest railway roundhouse, the building that housed the turntable on the site of the new HS2 station in Birmingham city centre, is extraordinary and fitting as we build the next generation of Britain's railways." One of the more intriguing HS2 discoveries came in a place called Wendover, where archaeologists found a 2,000-year-old skeleton in the ground. That's exciting in its own right, but what really caught the experts' attention was the condition in which this ancient man had been found. His face was pressed against the ground, and his hands had been tied together. Had he been murdered? Archaeologist Dr. Rachel Wood seems to think so. Speaking after the find, she said, "The death of the Welwick Farm man remains a mystery to us, but there aren't many ways you end up in the bottom of a ditch, face down, with your hands bound." We hope our osteologists will be able to shed more light on this potentially gruesome death. In this same location where the tied-up man was found, archaeologists also excavated what appeared to be a Neolithic monument with similarities to Stonehenge. They also found a burial site from Roman times. If nothing else, this particular part of the HS2 archaeological project really flagged up how much is at stake with the works. There's so much to find. That point was also perfectly illustrated in a village called Offchurch, where excavations took place from around June 2020 to November that same year. These works were split into two primary locations of interest, a northern and a southern site, with 42 archaeologists working across both. It was a big undertaking, but it proved worth it in the end. The project actually started before any digging took place, though. Thanks to fancy pieces of equipment including a device known as a magnetometer, the archaeologists could see features underground plotted out in the form of digital renderings. That presumably made the actual excavations easier, as they knew where to look. With the help of the magnetometer, the archaeologists realized the northern sector of the Offchurch site was full of little enclosed compounds beneath the surface. There were also wooden roundhouses, which likely would have served as living quarters long ago. Observations of the southern site suggested a series of ancient field systems and roads were concealed there. With that in mind, the archaeologists got to work with the practical business of excavating the two sites. And sure enough, the structures the magnetometer had indicated would be there were found. The experts dated the constructions on the northern sector back to the middle of the Iron Age, sometime between 400 BC and 100 BC. Many of the things found in the southern sector were dated to a later time, some point between 43 AD and 410 AD. That would have been when the Romans were in control of England and leaving their mark on the land. When an archaeological project as big as HS2 is underway, the Romans just can't be avoided. As the wider HS2 archaeological project progressed into 2021, the finds just kept on coming. In Warwickshire, an impressive garden from the 16th century was discovered, showing off what once would have been a very grand place. Signs of the one-time vibrant and abundant beds of flowers could still be seen. It's believed the fancy garden was built under the watch of one Sir Robert Digby, who really seemed to want to flaunt his riches. And it's probably fair to say he achieved the same, as experts are now gushing over the exuberance of his garden centuries after his death. As garden expert Dr. Paul Stamper put it, this is one of the most exciting Elizabethan gardens that's ever been discovered in this country. Dr. Stamper went on, there have only been 3 or 4 investigations of gardens of this scale over the last 30 years, including Hampton Court, Kirby in Northamptonshire and Kenilworth Castle, but this one was entirely unknown. He also described the newly discovered site's state of preservation as really exceptional and claimed the excavation would significantly enhance the extent of current knowledge about English horticulture at the turn of the 17th century. The archaeologists working along the HS2 route have obviously worked very hard in conducting their investigations. But sometimes they need a bit of luck on their side. That proved to be the case after extreme weather swept through a place called Hillingdon, which actually helped bring some special coins to the surface. These coins came from around the 1st century BC, during the Roman era of Britain. The coins themselves, or patens, as they're otherwise known, are a little over an inch in diameter, and their design mirrored those created in France. On one face there's a depiction of the Greek deity Apollo, whereas on the other there's a bull. During the era from which these patens emanate, coins weren't actually used transactionally. It may, then, have been the case that these things were meant as gifts to one or several deities. Whatever the answer, the archaeologists were delighted by the haul. No other discovery of these ancient coins could compare in size. By summer 2021, the HS2 project had brought something pretty creepy to the surface. Archaeologists were working at a place called Three Bridge Mill when some members of the group noticed something strange in the ground. It looked almost human, but in the end they were surely relieved to see it was made from wood. This wooden figurine was yet another artifact from the Roman era, but that's about all the experts could tell initially after the find. They couldn't immediately say what this thing was used for, even in spite of its remarkable condition. Thanks to the largely airless clay in which it had been found, the figure had managed to endure for millennia. This wooden figurine wasn't to be the last creepy discovery coming out of the HS2 archaeological project. Just a few months later, a team was working at a site in a place called Stoke Mandeville. As they worked to investigate an old church from Norman times, they saw a set of strange shapes in the ground. And just like the discovery months beforehand at Three Bridge Mill, these things appeared to be human. Thankfully, Once again, these eerie figures in the ground weren't actually real people. They were statues in the form of humans. One was a grown woman, another was a man, and the third was a kid. Weirdly, though, they weren't in great shape. The bust of the child consisted of only a head, whereas the two grown-ups also had bodies. But their own heads had seemingly been purposely cut off. Why would someone have gone to such great lengths to decapitate some stone statues? Well, oddly, it's not the most uncommon thing in the world. There have been plenty of times in the past when similarly defaced statues have been found by archaeologists. It seems people have tended to wreck statues like this before they take them down. Commenting on the statues, Dr. Wood said, "For us to end the dig with these utterly astounding finds is beyond exciting. The statues are exceptionally well preserved, and you really get an impression of the people they depict. Literally looking into the faces of the past is a unique experience. Of course, it leads us to wonder what else might be buried beneath England's medieval village churches. The church in this case is called St. Mary's, which was raised not long after the Normans took control of England. As the 20th century came into view, though, the building fell into disuse and a new church was built somewhere else in the village. It was then lost to time, only to be rediscovered during the HS2 excavations. St. Mary's Church went through a lot of changes before it was abandoned, with evidence suggesting it was renovated several times in its history. It's thought these changes indicate transitions in the building's function. That is, when it was first built, it was likely used by a private individual, probably a local lord. Over time, though, it was built up and open to the public. But eventually time got the better of the building, and it came to be covered by plants, which ended up totally hiding it from sight. But because of the HS2 project, archaeologists have been able to identify the building and really take a close look at it. And the three stone statues are far from the only finds they've registered. The 40-strong group of archaeologists also uncovered a glass jug shaped into a hexagon. Like the statues, this dated back to the Roman era more than 1,000 years ago. But despite this tremendous length of time, it somehow managed to remain in remarkably good condition. Much of the artifact is still in pretty good shape. The incredible condition of the jug is almost without precedent, except for one other discovery on record. That was a remarkably similar Roman jug found in basically perfect condition. Its rarity means that prestigious piece is now displayed in an exhibition at New York's Metropolitan Museum of Art. Beyond the jug and the statues, the archaeologists also found something intriguing and quite unsettling. They came across some stones which had a series of shapes carved onto them. In one, for instance, a pair of stones had been marked with a hole at their center and a set of lines shooting out from that point. The carvings are oddly creepy, and that actually makes a certain amount of sense. Historians think these things are witches' marks which would have been used to keep wicked spirits at bay. These sorts of etchings have actually been discovered all over the UK, so it's very possible that's what's going on here. An alternative theory, though, is that the carvings acted as a sort of primitive sundial. Like so many places along the HS2 route, this particular archaeological site is revealing just how rich and strange the history of England is. The experts think Stoke Mandeville started out as a burial site during the Bronze Age. Later, then, it came to be used by people in the Roman era. Keeping with the Bronze Age burial traditions of the site, the Romans seem to have raised a building here that they used as a mausoleum. This was eventually destroyed when the Normans took over the land and decided to construct St. Mary's Church. All in all, a lot has happened in this area over the centuries. Since the investigations of St. Mary's were publicized, plenty more incredible discoveries have been made through the HS2 project. To some, that's a positive outcome, adding to our knowledge of Britain's past. Opponents of the new train line, on the other hand, feel ultimately a lot more historical secrets will be lost forever. Either way, the archaeological work taking place right now undoubtedly has urgent importance. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe.